Hi, so it's been a long time since I made a video, and some things have changed. I hadn't been doing it, and I suddenly felt inspired, for various reasons, which I'll get into while I'm talking. One of the reasons I do creative things is sometimes just to feel good about myself, whether for good reasons or for bad. In any case, I decided to take a walk. It's one of my New Year's resolutions to resume my walking and my writing and my videos and whatever else, some kind of creative pursuit. And I happen to live relatively close to where I first moved in, when I first moved to Zurich in 2005. And I lived next door to a cemetery, which was quite beautiful. I moved in there in the summer, so it looked then quite different to how it looks now in these videos. It occurred to me as I walked around and I saw the beautiful gravestones and the beautiful designs and statues and memorials and tombstones and tombs indeed, for families and brothers and spouses and so on. And we had been talking about Ender's Game, the film, the book. I hadn't read the book or seen the movie. And a friend of mine told me that she lent me, not the first book, but the second one, which she considered generally superior. And in the introduction, Orson Scott Card says, and I quote, "How did Speaker for the Dead," which is the name of the book, "come to be? As with all my stories, this one began with more than one idea. The concept of a speaker for the dead arose from my experiences with death and funerals. I've written of this at greater length elsewhere. Suffice it to say that I grew dissatisfied with the way that we use our funerals to revise the life of the dead, to give the dead a story so different from their actual life that, in effect, we kill them all over again. No, that is too strong. Let me just say that we erase them, we edit them, we make them into a person much easier to live with than the person who actually lived. I rejected that idea. I thought that a more appropriate funeral would be to say, honestly, what that person was and what that person did. But to me, honesty doesn't simply mean saying all the unpleasant things instead of saying only the nice ones. It doesn't even consist of averaging them out. No, to understand who a person really was, what his or her life really meant, the speaker for the dead would have to explain their self-story, what they meant to do, what they actually did, what they regretted, what they rejoiced in. That's the story that we never know, the story that we never can know, and yet at the time of death, it's the only story truly worth telling." And I couldn't actually get further through this introduction because it struck me that I was reading these words in a graveyard. Well, I don't like to call it a graveyard. It's much prettier than a normal graveyard, but it's a cemetery where people died and are remembered, and their graves are maintained with flowers and decorations and sometimes Christmas gnomes and Santas and things. And it occurred to me again that funerals, much like cemeteries, are not really about the dead. Orson Scott Card is focusing a lot on the death of the person, the dead person, but funerals and cemeteries are much, much more for the living. When a person is dead, we can't really say what happens to a person after they die, but we can think about it. And the way we treat them says a lot about who we are as people and how we cope with the finality of our own existence. And it says a lot that we try to treat them in a way that makes us feel comfortable. It's not about the dead. It is about the living and the way we live our lives as the living, as the people who have to live without those people who are no longer there. And that's just as important in a way as the person who lived a life and passed away. But the way we think about those people who pass away, it says a lot about how we think about our own lives and what we think of ourselves and what we want to do with our lives. It's odd that when I'm not feeling great, or for whatever reason that I feel like being creative, that in a way sometimes unhappiness or whatever feelings, negative feelings, inspire creativity. And in my case, they inspire the creativity to be the person I want to be, which is to some extent a creative person. It's a strange set of occurrences and coincidences and lots of things that built me up to this point where I want to make a video about these thoughts on life and death and how we take meaning from our lives. And these projects, this stuff, this is my way of becoming who I want to be, of becoming what I would like to be remembered for by the living. When we're dead, it's too late. No matter how fairly we treat them, and no matter how much we commemorate or wish to focus on the positives or the negatives or whatever, when someone is dead, it's too late. But when you're alive, that's when it matters. To be who you are, and to be more of the person that you want to be. And it's ironic that there are times when I just want to be that person, and there are times when I don't feel like that person at all, but I want to try. And in a lot of ways, the trying is what's important. Regardless, I can't promise that there are going to be any other videos soon. I can't promise anything, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try harder than I did before when I promised myself that I would. Alright. Thank you for listening to my rambling thoughts.